Hi folks, John with the Wingman 115 channel. Today we're going to be doing a little bit different video format than you're used to seeing on the channel. Every once in a while we got to shake it up if we're going to take the channel to an all new level. So I'm all about bringing people that are, I don't like the term expert on stuff, but they're very, very knowledgeable on the genre that we're going to be talking about. This guy right here, Jaime, who's my archery guru, also is very knowledgeable in Bark River knives. So today we're going to be talking about Bark River knives, and all you Bark River knife fans out there, don't go crazy right off the bat, because he's going to be talking about some controversial stuff, but I'll let him say what we're going to be doing today.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Jaime Leon de la Parra. I run JLD Instinctive Archery, and we normally come out here, get together, and do a lot of archery stuff, as John stated, and that's our biggest passion. But our other passion is knives, cutlery, one of man's oldest engineered tools. And this video is basically just covering two of my head-to-head going at it, because it's what I feel, well, what I prefer. It's just my opinions on what I like, what's best of the best, with maybe a little bit of an underdog, kind of a Rocky Balboa versus Apollo Creed thing. So that's kind of what's going on here. Not a right or wrong, good or bad. These are my opinions about what I think works for me. And maybe there are people out there that are kind of having some questions. There's a lot of information out there, a wealth of information, which I think is great, but sometimes it can become too confusing. And then I believe that people start getting into certain camps and certain cliques, and because so-and-so said this, da-da-da-da-da. Why don't you get out there and try it for yourself? Because I've come to realize that for myself, that even though the pros and the masters and the gurus, they say do this, sometimes it doesn't work for you. Just maybe your body type, or maybe the method of whatever, fill in the blank. So you get out there and you do what you got to do to figure out what works best for you. It could be as simple as, I just don't have the money to invest in stuff, or hey, you know, this works better because whatever. Again, fill in the blank. So that's what it's about today. We're gonna have some fun, try to pass on some information and experience, and maybe you get something out of it, or maybe just have a good time watching. So thanks, John.
So the two knives that we're going to be talking about today are?
We got the CFK Cutlery 108. This was gifted to me by a cousin of mine from Texas. Great little company. They're a little small company out of Oregon. I believe it's Hillsboro. Could be incorrect. But they have a lot of knives on eBay, Amazon, and I believe Walmart just picked them up on their online stores. Great little knife. I added this little Sunto compass, and that's a trick that I learned from a dear friend of mine, mind you, internet texting friend, Doug Wilson. Green Beret, Special Operations. He's my brother in a sense. I'm former Naval Special Warfare, so we have that little bond. Mr. Doug Wilson made this beautiful sheath for the Bark River Bravo 1.25. So I'm testing out the convex grind of this versus our traditional, what you find everywhere, hollow grind that's used for mass production, and to see how they differ. We all know that convex works best for a lot of things, but is it always king? Is it always the best? So there's a lot of similarities between these two knives, with a simple exception that one's hollow and one's convex. Now, one's USA made, and this is the Apollo Creed of the knife world, in my humble opinion. And this is kind of the underdog, a little bit of that Rocky Balboa, maybe a little bit of that Dolph Lundgren, you know, because we're like, bad guy, and for certain reasons, but we'll see how they turn out.
So watch this video with an open mind, and what we're trying to do is just show you viable options out there. Maybe your circumstance and your lifestyle right now, you can't afford to go out and purchase a certain A-list blade. Our goal here is to try to give you options and to show you both. So without further ado, we're going to cut away and we're going to get the party started.
Okay, guys, so for me, you know, I'm no Ray Mears or anything, but growing up in Texas and everywhere, or growing up in Texas and then military life, and now here also doing bow hunting, there's certain things that I found. So again, we just off on the side, we've been talking about everyone's opinions and whatnot. So who am I? I'm just talking about what it is that I like, and I have found that 5-inch blades tend to be one of some of the things that I like for me personally, for all-around usage. There is no such thing as one knife, that one Rambo knife, but anyways, for me, I do like to have that one go-to knife that I could throw on my belt. And for a while there, I shied away from leather sheaths. I got caught out in the rain on a bow hunt, and I was like, I'm done with leather, and I'm going all Kydex, which led me to Mr. Doug Wilson, former Green Beret guy, and he makes really excellent sheaths. And he had made, this is actually like my third one, but my first one he had done for a knife that I had purchased called a CFK knife, which was a very inexpensive knife. I liked the particular blade design, 5-inch blade. And that introduced me actually first to two things, the CFK brand and Doug Wilson. Hit the fast forward button, and I've educated myself on convex grinds, and it seems like there's two kings in that, and that's Felkneven and Bark River knives. And since we're always here in the U.S., we're always looking for our U.S. Makers, trying to support our economy, and U.S. made. Bark River really grabbed my attention. I have played with Felkneven, and I don't like the handles, got away from the rubberized, but they're still great knives. But still, the point is one of the biggest things for me, I've perfected sharpening knives by hand, and I can really get screaming sharp, scary sharp edges on all my V grinds, regardless of the grind, so on the cutting apex. So all my knives are crazy sharp. The convex edge presented me a new challenge, so we all never want to be stagnant, we always want to learn. So this convex of the Bark Rivers is something very new to me. Watched a lot of videos, did some reading, and try to incorporate what I know with some of the new stuff. And I have to admit, I cannot get the convex as scary sharp as what I know with a regular V-grind. But anyways, I'm doing a little battle of the blade situation, because it's now come to a final standstill for me, where choosing a great all-around blade, I thought I had found it with the Bravo 1.25 5-inch blade, and I'm going to just have to assume that a lot of people have done their homework on the Bark River and the Bravos series and their history and how they came about with the Marine Corps Special Operations School, Force Recon, and their survival school, how they chose Bark River. Again, I'm not going to get too much into the history, but you have to recognize that these guys know what they're doing, as well as any other person that spends a lot of time in the bush. So that's why I chose this knife. I did play around with the Gunny Hunter. That was another great Bark River design. Now, even though Bark River makes great leather sheaths, I was still on my Kydex kick, and I already knew the work that Doug Wilson can do. So I sent this Bark River out to Mr. Doug Wilson, and he made a very nice Kydex sheet. I like to keep my stuff simple, so even though he has some great materials of different camos, different beautiful, gorgeous patterns, he actually offered to make me one with some more exotic patterns, but I wanted to stick with plain Jane Kydex, because if it's too pretty, I'm not going to use it. And also, even though I can have more attachments per Doug's sheath system, I like to keep it simple, so a diamond ferro rod and a scraper that actually you rotate out. A lot of people think I got to unscrew it with a multi-tool, but no, it's a flipper ferro rod, and then I would be able to scrape it. And this is all last ditch. You know, you fell out of your canoe, your gear went down river, paint whatever picture you want, and this is all you got. It's going to work. Obviously, it has your I forgot the name of it, but tech lock for your belt. So easy on, easy off. I like that. Very, very nice. But something kind of messed me up. A cousin of mine, a dear cousin of mine back in Texas, he sent me a knife. I had sent him a knife, and in return he sent me a CFK knife. Custom forged knives, cutlery, they have a little bit of a controversy because of where they come from, but the people that buy them and use them, they're like, man, these are great knives. And I've been of that club. As I mentioned earlier, I had bought a CFK. It was actually a birthday present from someone, and that got Kydex by Doug. But then this came into my hand, and for my hand, I have somewhat small, medium hands. The way it fits, it's just money. Even more so than the Bark River. The handles are always really praised as to being super comfortable, and they are. But this one just fits money in the shape of it, everything. I believe it is Will, Mantis Outdoors, the way he designed his Sospi, if I'm pronouncing it right. The drop point of his blade is in a line with the center of the blade. So if you're doing any drilling, you got the center line, and that's what I find with this one. With this is the CFK 108. Whereas the Bark River Bravo, they have a higher belly, and that point, it's kind of classified as a drop point but it's still kind of high. So y'all can notice that. And that is important to me when I'm doing some light carving or some fine carving. With this Bark River, I really got to turn it around to get to that point. And you can see where my hand, my working hand, my knife hand is in relation to my body, as opposed to this drop point that isn't as extreme. You can see my hand isn't as high, and I'm doing more control with the thumb. Anyways, that's something that I have found out in playing around with them. We're gonna get into just a little bit of the batoning thing. Oh, well, before I get into that, obviously we got convex versus hollow ground. That's another big thing. Scandivex or Scandi grinds for woodcraft, obviously they're king, as well as with the convex. Hollow ground, there's a lot of people that say, not so much for, and I'll agree, for moving a lot of wood, it probably digs in too much. But a knife is a slicer, and with this hollow ground, even though it's a 1/4 inch thick, and it keeps the hollow ground from being too thin. That's the point I'm trying to make. So there's a lot of other manufacturers out there that still do the hollow ground. Why? Because you can pump out a bunch of them. Obviously passing them through 2 grinders. So we all are aware of that, those that understand that concept. And some of us have shied away because thin profile, you can chip it. I understand that, and I've seen it happen a lot of times. But this is a D2 steel blade, 1/4 inch thick, or between 3 1/4 or 3/16 and 1 1/4. Y'all know what I'm saying? Somewhere in there. And man, let me tell you, I've been impressed. So I've gone toe to toe with these. This one being like, this is going to be my ultimate go-to with the Doug Wilson sheath. But I landed this one by my cousin, and let me tell you that one of the things I like about the leather sheath on this one is you can see I could do it quick, easy on, easy off. I am a fan of the horizontal carry. That's due to the fact that I can reach the knife with both hands. So my dominant hand, but also the left hand in an emergency situation, as opposed to it sitting here on the side. Also, I could sit down comfortably in a vehicle and still draw my knife, or if I'm sitting around camp. So that's something that I like in a cross draw. And that's how I had Doug Wilson set this one up. It's actually at a slight angle with a tech lock, but with the weight of the handle, it drops the knife in a nice horizontal carry. So this CFK sheath, most of their knives are made this way. It came around and I'm like, oh man, that's money. And you can still wear it vertically if you want, if you so chose to, or put it on a pack. So you have that option. Doug Wilson does make his sheaths in the same way. If I wanted to, I could have had a dangler system and whatnot. So it's not that I limited it myself, but it's all good. You could always make them. So pros and cons. This is going to be more weather resistant and whatnot. But one thing I kind of forgot about as a bow hunter is the leather is quiet. So if silence is an issue when I'm creeping through the woods, maybe I got to trim up my ground blind. I don't want to be making too much noise with my knife. If I got to trim some branches and then resheath it, I just give away my position to whatever it is that I'm trying to hunt. I could go on and on and on the sheath systems, but I'm going to kind of stop there and let's just kind of get into the knife situation. So we'll begin with the Bark River. Again, beautiful Bark River. And I'm sure out there for all of y'all, if y'all are watching this, then you guys are all a bunch of bushcraft, outdoor hunters, survivalist preppers, and y'all are aware of Bark River. If not, really awesome, badass company. Great little company, very comfortable. I kind of already went over the history on the Bravo family. Now there's a variety. So this is just the next one up. So anyways, let's get into the action, guys. Just a little bit of batoning. Very hard wood. I want to say maybe it's oak. And this thing's solid. I already played around with these knives, but just gonna get right into it. Got wood here so that my blade isn't going into the dirt. Little baton here. Here we go. And that just popped my ears. It's going through those knots. I mean, working it, but it's getting through there. Boom.
That oak's almost petrified. It's dry.
Yeah. You got a little bit of yeah. It's starting to go a little petro there, but nice and tough. But for what we're doing today, testing, great. I start off on the ground just so it absorbs some of the shock Then I transfer onto my wooden platform so that the blade doesn't hit the dirt and a rock and then chip it out. Actually, I bought this Bark River used and the tip had a chip in it. But again, I learned how to work with edges a while back by hand, and I was able to take that chip out, and it looks great. Wouldn't even know it. Not serious. So I think that's all I'm going to do, just because we all know what's up. There's no real need to push the knife. We're not going into destruction mode. So I just wanted to see how easily it went. I mean, it's almost it is a 1/4 inch thick, so how many videos have been made on something like that, right? What I'm looking for is the feel for now. So it's kind of like I'm on the splitting hairs. It's beautiful in doing that. It's not a question of can it do it. For me, it's a question of how does it feel for me with a handle. Going on to the CFK 108. This has got all kinds of knots. We'll do that just to see what it can take. Even though it's a short piece and it's not that fat, and mind you, 5-inch blades, that's what you want. And yeah, this isn't going crazy town. We got axes for the bigger stuff. So this is partly a test demonstration, little eye candy for all y'all regarding, you know, the batoning and stuff. That's become a standard, but the reality is I probably wouldn't even be messing with wood of this dimension, but here we go. Wow, and there's a lot of knots on that. That was impressive. That just flew in. The Bark River tend to sink in. This one, I don't know if it's because it flares out with that hollow grind into that thick stock, but man, just blows it out. It's weird. I would expect that more from a convex grind. We'll do a comparison later. We'll do another one. Maybe I just had a weird piece. Nice big chunk of something there on the end. Start off again on the dirt just because it absorbs the impact. Now get on my wood platform. Dang, that's just crazy.
Could be the thickness of the blade. It's almost like a splitting wedge.
Correct. And again, let me compare both of these two. Got a lot of pollen and whatnot. I mean, they're pretty much the same thing. I want to say that let me know if I got to pivot it. I want to say that the CFK in my right hand is a little thinner, because I know the Bark Rivers definitely, they normally roll with a 1/4 inch. So for some of the other more true knowledgeable woodsmen, this is too much sauce. They want to go with a thinner blade. You know, then you're looking into like that Mora stuff, and I understand why. But again, I'm pretty caught up with the what if this is all you got kind of thing. I still have multiple knives. I carry on my belt. This is with me all day. I've carved many of things with this easily. So my good old Leatherman Wave, man, that's all I need. And then I won't get into my Swiss Army knife in my pocket, but for outdoor, for what we're doing, these are great. So you just saw what that did. Let me just compare one more time. Gonna go with that Bark River. Let me see if I get that splitting capability as opposed to it sinking in. Maybe I grabbed some wrong pieces of wood. Again, starting on the ground for me, just so that the ground absorbs that shock, but now going onto the wood. Well, there we go, popping them off. That's what I would expect. And again, this isn't, I mean, everyone knows the whole debate. And we already split my plank. No, truth is, both of them do a great job. For me, because of the way I like to sharpen knives, I'm going to be a fan of this hollow with a V grind. Not that I can't, and I should continue to learn and explore, and I do have the different strops and the blasey. Another thing that I'm on the wrong side of the fence, you could say, is that I'm a huge fan of diamond sharpeners. So for the hardcore sharpening enthusiast would be like, no, get your Japanese water stones. But the stones that I use are close to 20 years old. Some are a little younger, and they are super smooth. They don't feel like they would take any any metal off, but because of that, I can use them to reprofile, sharpen, or just polish or hone an edge. So I don't have the dilemma of leaving excessive scratching on the blade. When you buy a brand new diamond stone, that is a thing. And I recommend get an old machete or an old axe and pretend like you're going to sharpen it to take off a lot of the excessive material, rough material off that diamond stone. And now, just because we're here and we're filming, let's do a little bit of carving. Again, I've played around with them before, but it's like everything else, it's the feel. And I forgot who the old timer was that said, as long as you get your knife sharp, it's gonna feather stick, it's gonna do all that. I'm not feather sticking per se, I'm just carving. I'm just seeing how it bites into the wood. I forgot who it was. I think it was Chris Tanner of Prepared Mining 101 with Will of Manus Outdoors. They got a cold steel Tonto, kind of like more of a military knife, but they were like gonna do some bushcraft with it. It is a recent video, and it was a hollow ground, mass-produced, tactical type knife, and they were able to knock out a lot of their bushcraft-like testing with it. So it went to show hollow ground knife with a Tonto tip, whatever, not your typical recipe of a bushcraft knife, and it's not, a lot of times it's the skill of the man. It's the skill of the man. So it's a tool. Know your tool, know how to use it. A lot of people can afford the best. So there's a lot of people all over the world that get around with inexpensive stuff. Go to South America, go to Latin America, and there's some really crappy material used for cutting tools, chopping tools, but people make their living with it. But it's the knowledge that they have. Okay, so you could really tell how dead this wood is, but just playing around. Let's try this Bark River. So I'm comparing the grinds, or the grinds. This one actually bites in a little bit more. And do I want to get some thick curls or do I want to get some thin curls? So at the end of the day, you're just, what is your blade doing? There are times when I was playing with it where I didn't want to bite that deep into the wood, depending on what I'm carving out. And the convex was biting too much and messing up my project. So again, feel, it's all feel. So here it's not a who won, who didn't, it's just what feels better for me. And I'm also trying to get it out there that just because everybody reads that the hollow grind, it seems to be not the effective Woods tool. I mean, cold steel is a good example. Buck knives, good example. They've been making hollow grinds for a long time and they still work. They're still getting by. People aren't like, damn, I wish I had a Scandi, or I wish, you know.
Steel and heat treat probably is your biggest contributor.
Number one thing right there, your steel and your heat treat. Okay, one last little test, and again, we all know, those that are savvy, there are times you might need to chop with your knife, same thing with a batoning, but if you got your axe, go with your axe. So for my method, if I'm gonna chop with a knife for some light chopping, I incorporate a small lanyard loop for my 2 fingers. Imagine if there was no lanyard, and then you do your as my good friend Wingman says, the back seat grip, is that correct?
Yep.
And so I like to do the back seat grip, but I incorporate a little security measure with my 2-finger lanyard. 2-finger lanyard really locks it in so I can have a nice light grip, and I know that this knife isn't gonna go flying out of my handle. So one of the things that I look for in that, am I gonna get any hot spots depending on the handle design. Now, Bark River has a beautiful flare out, kind of like a reminiscent of a fawn's foot on an axe handle, and it really locks you in. But when I do go into my little back seat, rear grip, it kind of does do a little digging in, but you know, if you're a tough guy, it's not going to bother you. But depending on, again, we're not felling trees, we might be just doing a little bit of chopping, but with that little lanyard, really gets me in there. So here, what I'm looking for me, is my comfort, you know, and also how well does the knife bite into the wood. Normally, we'd be doing this with a lighter piece of wood, and I was able to chop, you know, finger-sized diameter sticks, like no problem. But right now, I'm just like, what's the feel of the knife doing? I get a little pinch because I got a ring finger on. And so just got to experiment. And also the convex grind really shines in this part of the procedure. Again, I'd rather use my saw. Just use my saw to break down all this stuff, but if you're in a survival situation. So I'm just getting the feel. A little bit of a hot spot, whatever, but I'm not gonna go felling trees. Now, this is where this mofo shines because of that bulbous rounded part. Again, I've already done this, so, oh, that's just money, very comfortable. And because of that bulbous and circular design, it just goes with a hand. Let's spin this around. And it's a heavy knife, heavier than the Bravo, so it's bringing a lot of weight. We get into science now. Now, due to the fact that it's a hollow grind, it has a different bite. I got to turn my angle in different. But it's getting in there. It does the job. Again, I got to consider the wood, but still. But it's not a felling tool. It's last minute. Got to chop up some stuff. This is more just for show, y'all, so y'all can see the type of cut that it gets in there. I do feel a bit of shock. You can see a little bit of redness there, but that's just because that's not the primary tool for this. Use a saw. I'll use a saw before I use a hatchet on this. Anyway, so this is just more for me to see what feels better in my hand. And again, thank you to my cousin out in Texas. He kind of ruined the Bark River trip that I had going. I'd say I still love him, and this knife is great, coupled with this Doug Wilson sheath that is outstanding. And I'll always rely on this knife. But when it comes to maybe my more daily outings, soft, quiet leather, traditional, easy on. Both of these are easy on, easy off, by the way. Little Sunto compass. I can attach it. I like to use a zip tie to attach it. Here's attached to the ferro rod string. It's not going anywhere. Awesome. But I would actually take it off and put it in my hand or on a piece of wood. But man, yeah, CFK, inexpensive, controversial, because, you know, are they Paki-ish, you know, from Pakistan? We don't know. We don't know where the steel's coming from. I'm not going to get too much into that. I do know that the owner, Mr. Jason Black, I believe it is, I had to send a sheath back from another knife, my first CFK. Quick, outstanding customer service. So no problems there. Their knives, if it's a new knife and there's an issue, they'll replace it for free. No questions asked. It comes with a little certificate. So you can't ask for more than that. The price on this bad boy, again, I didn't buy it. My cousin got it for me, but I think it's like 70 bucks. 70 bucks for a knife that is almost like a semi-custom with this kind of caliber. So I had a, you know, that's why I'm here today. So this is more for me than it is for, you know, I'm not trying to sell anything. It's just, you know, these are my findings. And if there's anyone out there having similar issues looking around, if you have the money for it, man, this is, you know, Bark Rivers are more expensive. I do go through eBay. I know I should probably plug it in like Knife Ship Free and DLT Trading. They're the actual retailers, but hey, I sometimes don't have that kind of money. So I went to eBay. I've bought a few Bark Rivers used with chips in the blades because people don't know what they're doing. And I've reprofiled them with my diamond stone, which I'm sure Mike Stewart of Bark River Knives would probably be yelling for that, but they come out amazing, amazing, because I kind of know what I'm doing as far as that goes, as far as what I explained. But Bark River's awesome. They're badass. Doug Wilson sheaths, outstanding. Man, brother, your work is amazing. But this is over 100 bucks. Knife, pushing over 200 bucks. I bought it for less on eBay. So you can imagine the investment here, but it's worth it. But for the working man, the common man, man, and the people are out there reviewing them, but it stays kind of quiet. It's been controversial out on the blade forums, but at the end of the day, hey, Buck's sending stuff out to China. The Buck Selkirk, it's one of the go-to knives I send people to getting into the outdoor industry, made in China. Kind of breaks your heart for a Buck knife, but it's still the jam. So who's to say? So for me, end of the day, wrap it up. I'm sure my buddy John will have to edit this and make it shorter. Two outstanding knives, big price difference. One, USA all the way. Doug Wilson sheath, special operations, a guy, background, brother to me now. Bark River knives, If you don't know the history of Mike Stewart, he started out making, well, I don't know that much, but I know that he started out a company called Blackjack Knives, and man, just legendary knives. And now Bark River, so America all the way, America. But CFK, here it comes, kind of this underdog with some controversy, but you get it in your hand, you do the quality work, and there's a variety of knives. See what you like, and if you get a knife and it comes in and it's all one big jack wagon, send it back. Send it back. Mr. Black, I believe, Jason Black, he'll hook you up. So anyways, not just trying to make you go out and buy stuff, but I'm just saying these are my findings, and this is more for my own personal edification. And if there's anyone out there contemplating the same stuff, there you go.